Coming out of high school, Justin Pugh only had one offer to one of the worst Division I schools in the country. But what if I told you that just a few years later, he'd not only be a top 20 draft pick, but he'd be thinking about leaving behind his $54 million NFL career to spend $70,000 to become a YouTuber? Well, I just interviewed him, and that's exactly what's happening. But to better understand the reason behind his sudden rise and potential career change, we have to go back to 1990, when Justin Pugh was born in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, a suburb 30 miles north of Philadelphia. Here, Justin grew up as the youngest of 4 in a blue-collar family. His mom was a 5th grade teacher, and his stepdad worked as a project manager on construction sites. This meant that from the very beginning, Justin understood the value of both education and hard work, although he says the thing he remembers most about his childhood was how competitive he and his 2 older stepbrothers were. Early on, this competitive nature played out on the ice rink where Justin played hockey until he was in 7th grade. However, as he surpassed his older brothers in size, it quickly became obvious that he might be better off trading in his skates for cleats. And it didn't take long for Justin to fall in love with football.
It all started to click. I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it. When the best thing about football is you get to put your hands on somebody and be as violent as you want, and they're not going to press charges against you. Like, that was when I could finally go out onto the football field and use that size and strength that was hurt me in hockey, helped me in football. And for the first time I really started to come into my own, I started to play, I would always play with the older kids.
Now, even though Justin went on to dominate on the offensive and defensive line in high school, he remembers not taking football very seriously. For one, he didn't know how good he truly was, since he went to a high school that had never produced a Division I recruit. This was largely due to the fact that they ran an outdated triple option offense, which meant that Justin didn't learn how to properly pass block until college. Not to mention, there aren't very many stats to measure the talent level of an offensive lineman, and the things you can measure, like strength, were never Justin's strong suits. But maybe the biggest reason he didn't take football all that seriously in high school was because his main focus was making money.
Money for me was, I always wanted more. And I remember I didn't want to be a school teacher. I didn't want to go into construction. I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing in my hometown. I had an uncle. He worked in wealth management, and I remember he had an Escalade at the time, and he was a part owner in a restaurant bar in our hometown. And I remember he had a house in our hometown, but then he also had an apartment down in Miami Beach, and he would go to Miami Beach in the winters. And I remember that was the moment I decided that I wanted to get a degree in finance. My uncle was like my mentor, a little bit of an idol. Like, I wanted to live like him. I'm like, oh, Uncle Johnny has this. He gets to go golfing. He gets to do all that. And that's really when money started to become a factor in my life, where I was like, hey, I want to create my own business. I want to create more than what I had, because I started peeking over the fence. It's probably not the best mentality to have, but I was 13, 14 years old, and I wanted a Range Rover one day, and I was going to figure out how I was going to do it.
Now, early on, this meant that Justin tried every side hustle, from reselling old gum and cigarettes from the deli he worked at, to hosting Madden tournaments, and even running a casino in his basement where he and his group of friends would take a rake from the pot. In fact, Justin admits that football would often take a backseat to whatever business he and his friends were running at the time. Still, he always had a plan. Get a full-ride scholarship to play football in college, use it to get a degree in finance, and then go work on Wall Street just like his uncle. And by his junior year, he had already received his first offer from Syracuse, which he described as being the worst Division I school in the country. But he didn't care, because he figured that by his senior year, offers would be flowing in from every top school in the region. However, they never came. Now, since Syracuse was basically the only FBS school to offer him, Justin ended up going there. But before he ever got to campus, the coach that had recruited him got fired, and the team's new coach, Doug Marrone, had revoked all but 3 scholarships, with Justin being one of the lucky few he kept around. However, once he arrived at school, things weren't any easier. Justin remembers calling his mom the first week of training camp, crying about how hard it was. At that point, 30 to 40 players had already quit the team, and Justin told his mom that he might be next. And honestly, you can't blame him.
We were running gassers game day. Like, the week of the game, we're running gassers Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're doing up downs. West Virginia's laughing at us. Geno Smith is laughing at us. We're doing up downs before we play West Virginia. Like, we're gassed out before we even start the game. Doug Marrone didn't care about winning games in year one. He cared about building a foundation. And I remember crying to my mom, like, I don't want to be here. This is too tough. I can't hack it. And she was like, well, you're going to pay for school then? Like, are you like, you're giving up $50,000 in education a year. Like, what's your plan? I was like, fine, I'll push to next week. I would get to next week and kind of build from there, but I did not want to be there.
In the end, Justin toughed it out, but would go on to redshirt his freshman year. However, the following spring, he managed to earn the starting left tackle job. And by his third season with the team, he was regularly shutting down first-round picks like Nick Perry and Bruce Irvin. Not to mention that every day at practice, he had to face off against an under-recruited edge rusher named Chandler Jones. This helped him earn 2 first-team All-Big East honors at left tackle during his 3 years at Syracuse, as well as a second to third round grade heading into the 2013 NFL Draft. But all of this success wasn't without its downsides, because while Justin thought of himself as being great with money growing up, he says that being on a full-ride scholarship for 4 years significantly hurt his understanding of money and how to spend it. But whether he was ready for it or not, reality was about to set in. Because with the 19th overall pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, the New York Giants made him the highest drafted lineman out of Syracuse since 1954. And even though this caught Justin a little bit by surprise, I'm sure you can guess what his first question to his agent was.
Like, how much are we getting? How much money is about to come into my pocket? And he tells me the number, and I just remember like, holy shit. But the biggest moment came when I got paid. I actually got paid the dollars, and taxes were withheld for the first time by the New York Giants. So my signing bonus, I think, was $4 million, and I got a check for $2 million. And I remember calling my uncle, who ended up managing my finances. He calls me and he's like, I call him and I said, where's the money? He's like, what do you mean? It's in your account. And I was like, only half of it's there. He goes, Uncle Sam's gonna get his. And that was my first exposure to money and taxes all wrapped into one. And that first conversation on taxes has changed my view of money from that day forward. That single instance is what's changed my view on money forever.
But before he could truly learn about saving his money, Justin had to make a few mistakes spending it first.
I had the Amex Platinum. I thought I was the man. And I remember I would go out the first year and I would go to dinners, just drop the Amex, pay for me, my buddies, whoever was around. And I had to learn how quickly money can go. I went from nothing to having $2 million in the bank. I bought the Range Rover we talked about that I always wanted to get. I get the all blacked out Range Rover, tint the windows. I go get the great apartment overlooking Manhattan. A couple of my buddies move in with me and we're living the life. It was almost like freshman year all over again. I put in all the hard work. I made it. Aha, I'm here. And then all of a sudden after my rookie year, start every game, make all rookie. People are telling me how great I am. And then all of a sudden I sit down with my uncle and he's like, do you know how much you spent this year? And just on going out and dinners and going to clubs, spent $250,000.
Now, after this conversation with his uncle, Justin ended up investing the rest of his signing bonus and still hasn't touched it to this day. He even said that he's thankful his uncle let him make those mistakes his rookie year, so that he could learn how to properly budget and spend his money going forward, something he hadn't had to do in over 4 years. Meanwhile, on the field, Justin also came into his own, starting every game he played in with the Giants at basically every offensive line position, leading him to believe that he'd be in New York for his entire career. But he quickly realized that's not how the NFL works. And after the GM that drafted him and the coach that he had built a great relationship were both fired in 2017 in the middle of a 2-10 season, Justin learned the hard way about the business of football, and in more ways than one. For starters, the Giants' new GM wasn't interested in re-signing him, resulting in Justin signing a 5-year, $45 million contract on the other side of the country with the Arizona Cardinals. But quite possibly the most valuable lesson he learned in his last year with the Giants had absolutely nothing to do with football.
That last year, I had a teammate of mine, Zach Diassi, that took me to this secret business society. It wasn't secret, it was out there. I felt like it was a secret business society. I'm like, all these young entrepreneurs were getting in a room talking about business, talking about venture capital and private equity and wealth management and real estate. I'm like, I have no idea what these people are talking about. In my head, I'm like, I have the best job in the world. They're paying me a bunch of money to play football. Why would I care about anything else other than that? My uncles were socking my money away. Money's like soap. The more you play with it, the less you have. Screw doing all this alternative investment. Screw networking. I got my buddies on the team. That's all I need. I got my eight best friends or 7 best friends. That's all I need. And I quickly found out you're a reflection of who you surround yourself with. And I started to surround myself early on with maybe not the best people in the world, and I started to change. And I started to up the people that I surrounded myself. I peeked over the fence one too many times. I want to live like that. Well, how do you live like a Larry Fitzgerald? How do you live like a Kelvin Beachum? How do you live? I started taking little bits and pieces from everyone that I was around. How do I live like Zach Diossi, Eli Manning, Justin Tuck? And every time I would see one of those guys, I don't want to go out anymore. I want to go to a business dinner. I want to network with somebody. And I went to this event, 2018, around business, and that was really when the light bulbs went off. I met a real estate developer in New York. He's still a great friend of mine. And I realized taxes. In real estate, they have very advantageous tax setup. I remember when I got taxed the first time, I hated it. And I'm like, I want to find out more about this. I want to become more knowledgeable about taxes. And I heard someone talk about commercial real estate, and you can go to the president of the United States and they try to get his tax bill because real estate has a very tax advantageous structure. And that's when I fell in love with real estate. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to pursue. And started to really run that race.
This secret society, as Justin calls it, is what led him to buying an old 3-acre bed and breakfast in Arizona for $2.1 million during his first few years with the Cardinals. He then turned that property into an apartment development where he can theoretically collect passive rental income for the rest of his life. In fact, Justin was so inspired to get into real estate that while he was still playing for the Cardinals, he'd spend his offseason interning at a local real estate development office to learn more about the trade. At which point, he realized something important.
I said, where is the best place for me to expand my career in real estate, expand my career with the banks, with the lenders? And it was to go back to New York City. So the Giants were struggling on their offensive line at the time. And I was like, going back to New York City and back to where it all started, and to where I mentioned being a first round pick in New York City, my name had a little more cachet. And I knew if I wanted to get closer to folks in real estate, I should be back in Manhattan.
So after leaving the Cardinals as a free agent in 2023 and starting the following season without a team, Justin signed with the New York Giants straight off the couch in the middle of the season and said he wouldn't play anywhere else for the rest of his career. However, come 2024, the Giants still hadn't re-signed him. Now at this point, I don't think anybody would blame Justin if he wanted to hang it up. After all, he's 34 years old, he's played in the league for 10 years, and he's made over $54.6 million. But he still wanted to play. So he came up with a plan to keep his name relevant for the sake of both his playing career and his growing business ventures.
I realized, like, if I can do media, I can stay relevant to the NFL. I can stay close to the NFL shield. And when you're closer to the NFL shield, you have relevancy to continue to get into those rooms that you once did as a player, but now you can as a former player media personality.
Even though Justin still doesn't claim to be retired, he's dove headfirst into media, hosting shows with networks from ESPN Radio to Underdog and Whistle Sports. But this past season, Justin decided to take his relevancy a step further and develop a brand new series from scratch on his very own channel, which had just a few thousand subscribers when he started. Still, the plan was to travel to every Thursday night football game and document the experience from a fan perspective. So he leaned heavily on his reputation as a former player to land brand deals and get access that some fans can only dream of. But it didn't all go according to plan.
I saw controlling your own audience is where the success was. Like no one, I didn't hire an agent. I was my own agent. I was getting my own marketing deals. I was finding my own sponsors for the shows. I was talking to all the teams. I was getting the right insurance. I was getting the right camera guys involved. Basically, I was using my connections at the NFL to do what the job of all those people would be. And I learned the business. I learned the hard work. My partner, Alex, and I, who partnered with me on that series and on some of the other initiatives that we're working on, he and I would travel to every game, and we're staying at a crappy hotel, saving money, trying to like not lose money doing this. We ended up basically breaking even on the season. We didn't make money on it. We basically just broke completely even. I didn't realize how much video and editing would cost. So yeah, we did that because I wanted to build my own rapport. Fans might know me with the Giants or Cardinals, but the Chiefs fans didn't know me. The Cleveland Browns fans didn't know me. So how can I really become this bridge between the fans and the players? And I wanted to continue to show that interaction.
In the end, Justin and his business partner Alex traveled to 12 different Thursday night games, spending over $70,000 to do so. But the risk paid off. Not only did the pair make their money back in sponsorships and ad revenue, but they also earned over 500,000 views and 18,000 subscribers during the 4-month stretch. By the last few weeks of the tour, Justin says he was getting recognized by fans in new cities. But at the end of the day, that's not why he's doing all this. Instead, he told me that as he's contemplating a return to the NFL or jumping into content full-time, there's another project he's building out that he's even more excited about.
I'm doing an event called Biz Week with the NFL and Syracuse University, my alma mater. It's going to be a 3-day summit. We're getting like 40 NFL players to Manhattan. talking to guys about everything that, the game plan that's been passed down to me from guys like Larry Fitzgerald, Kelvin Beachum, the Bobby Wagners, the Curtis Martins, the players that you know and you've highlighted on your show, the Ronnie Lotts of the world. Like, I want to continue to learn from those players and what they've done well. And hopefully we're going to have a great 3-day summit where we get guys in. It's nonprofit, but continue to pull guys along and to show them how to leverage those logos, how to leverage the NFL Shield, how to work in your alma mater that you went to. So all those things wrapped into one. I'm spending almost all my time right now on that.
If you want to hear the full hour-long conversation I had with Justin, the link to that is in the description. Otherwise, if you're a fan of stories like this one, consider subscribing and watching another.